In this video, we will be covering one of the most important topics when discussing steroids, which is heart damage, heart growth, or the so-called medical term left ventricular hypertrophy. So everyone is worried about their heart when thinking about steroids, especially normies and people that have no clue about steroids in general. They think that you can't prevent this. They think that if you take steroids, your heart is going to explode. But in this video, we will cover the exact mechanisms the heart can grow from steroids and how to prevent them, each one of them. So let's start. The first one here, I was just covering it up like this so the video is more engaging. The first one is the direct androgen-induced growth. So you know that steroids will grow all muscles because they bind to the androgen receptors, and heart is a muscle too. So if you take ridiculous doses of steroids, so your muscles grow insanely, your heart is also going to grow because heart is also a muscle and has the same androgen receptors. Now, this is not going to be significant if you take a dose that's reasonable. Like if you take a dose like me, you take 250 milligrams testosterone, 350 milligrams testosterone, microdose trenbolone 50 to 100 milligrams. This is not going to be significant because it's normal for your heart to grow a little bit in general. If you are an athlete, if you train any kind of sport, if you do any kind of cardio, it's normal for your heart to adapt, to grow, to become stronger. And if you take reasonable doses, this pathway is not going to be significant. Like if you don't take grams of steroids, your heart is not going to suddenly double in size. That's not going to happen. Is it going to grow a little bit? Probably, but it's not going to be significant to any extent that it makes your life worse or makes your lifespan shorter or anything like that. Some of the next pathways that we will discuss are more significant even at low doses, so those will be more important. But for this one, just don't be insane. Just don't be stupid. Don't take 2 grams of testosterone. Don't take something like that. Because if you take huge doses of steroids, like multiple grams per week, that's when the heart growth from steroids itself is going to be significant because you are giving your body so many androgens that will bind to the receptors. But if you take reasonable doses like me, this should not be an issue. And in general, you should stick to reasonable doses because you can get great results from reasonable doses unless you want to become a 140 kilo bodybuilder, but we will get to that later. The next pathway here is the angiotensin pathway and blood pressure. So this is probably one of the bigger pathways that usually cause heart growth for people that take steroids. And in general, even if you don't take steroids, this can happen to you, like even if you are fully natural, because anabolic steroids can upregulate the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, and this will cause increased blood pressure. Now, this can happen naturally as well. Like if you eat a ton of salty foods and you have a ton of salt and you don't have potassium to balance it out, this will happen. So you don't necessarily need to be on steroids to keep your eye on the angiotensin pathway, but there is a medication for this that fixes it, which is telmisartan, because it selectively blocks the angiotensin 1, angiotensin 2 pathway. And in general, like even if you are a natural person and you have high blood pressure, your doctor would probably prescribe you this to basically fix the issue that you could have fixed just by eating less salt and eating more potassium. So this is one of the things that I personally think that you should not take the medication, you should just fix the core issue itself, which is you have too much sodium, you have too little potassium, and you should just replace your sodium salt with potassium salt. You should increase your potassium intake by drinking coconut water, by drinking protein chocolate milk, protein shakes that are dairy based. So these things have a lot of potassium and they will balance out the sodium, and you will usually fix the issue from the core. So you don't necessarily need to take telmisartan, but if you are taking really big doses of steroids, then sometimes it's needed, because if you take a small dose like me, the upregulation of renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system is not going to be significant. So this could increase my sodium retention by maybe 10 to 20%, which is easily balanced. Like you can easily balance that out with just lowering your sodium intake. But if you take huge doses of steroids, like a gram, 2 grams, then that upregulation of the aldosterone and the angiotensin is going to be significant. So you might need to take telmisartan. But in my case, where you use reasonable doses, you don't need to take this medication, and you can just eat less salt and eat more potassium, which is pretty simple, but a lot of people just don't want to do it. The next thing here is, this is also a big one. This is a really big factor, which is the beta-adrenergic pathway and resting heart rate. So taking a lot of steroids, but doesn't even matter, like you don't really have to take that much steroids. Like we will discuss things later that are related to this. But if your heart rate is really high all the time, like resting heart rate, I know people who are just fat and their resting heart rate is like 100. Like they are sitting down, they are laying in bed, and their heart is beating at like 100 beats per minute. That's really unhealthy, and that's going to shorten your lifespan for sure. So for me, my resting heart rate is really good. Like it's always been around maybe, let's say, 60 when I'm like laying down not doing anything. And when I'm sleeping, my heart rate is probably like about 50, which is amazing. And that's really healthy and good for longevity because the heart is not beating that much. And in general, if you look at the animal kingdom, all the animals that have faster heart rates, they live the shortest. Like if you look at a mouse, the heart rate is probably like 150 or 200, and the mouse lives like 2 years. And then you have something like the huge turtles that can live like 150 years, and their heart rate is like 20 or 30. So in general, like your heart rate, if it beats slower, you will probably live longer, and that's really important. So steroids can increase like your resting heart rate significantly, and you need to keep your eye out on this. Like in my case, on my doses that I'm using, my heart rate hasn't increased, unless when I tried retatrutide. Retatrutide does increase your heart rate by at least 10, which is, let's say, not amazing, but you can balance it out. Like you could do more cardio, you could just not eat before sleep and stuff like that. Those things can help lower your heart rate. But if it got really bad, like some people that just genetically have a more sensitive heart, let's say, to these things, and your heart rate is just like 90, 100, 110 resting heart rate, you could take something like nebivolol to block the beta 1 receptor in your heart. So nebivolol is a beta blocker. It's the newest generation one, so it doesn't have some of the side effects that the previous ones had, because the previous beta blockers were really rough. They had a lot of side effects on some other things, and they would make you feel fucked up, no energy, no libido. But nebivolol usually doesn't cause these things, and it's a solid option if you have a high resting heart rate, or you notice that during workouts your heart is like beating incredibly strong and fast, because it's basically like using nebivolol would be like putting a rev limiter on your engine, like not letting your engine go too strong, because that could destroy the engine long term. So nebivolol could be something like that. Like it's going to prevent your heart from beating too strong, and it's usually going to lower your resting heart rate significantly. These things can impact performance. So if you take nebivolol, there is a pretty high chance that your performance in the gym could also be less, but you would also be putting much less strain on your heart. So it's a really good option to do if you want to prevent this kind of damage, because if your heart is beating really strong, really fast, that's going to cause damage to it long term, and you will probably live less. So this is a pretty significant one. But in my case, if you just keep your eye out on the resting heart rate and it's completely normal, and even like above average regarding how low it is, like in my case, like 60 resting heart rate, that's amazing, and you don't have to take nebivolol. Okay, let's see the next thing on the list. Oh yeah, this is an interesting one. So most people are not using growth hormone or insulin, but people who are using big doses of growth hormone and insulin, it's another way that the heart and other organs can grow. But I put it here because heart also is an organ, so it's also going to grow. So bodybuilders that you saw that they are huge on stage, they are 130 kilos of muscle, and their stomach is bulging out from how big their organs grew. Their heart also like doubled in size. Like it's not rare for a bodybuilder to die, and their heart is almost double the size of a normal human heart. And this is usually mostly caused by the growth hormone and insulin, because they can grow all organs, like it's called visceromegaly. And it's especially caused by IGF-1, but basically IGF-1 is made from growth hormone in your liver. So if you take a huge dose of growth hormone, that's going to skyrocket your IGF-1, which is going to skyrocket your gains regarding the muscles, but it's also going to skyrocket your organ growth. So in my opinion, like you should not be doing this unless your dream is to be a Mr. Olympia and you need to be 140 kilos of muscle and you are fine with living 50 years, 60 years, then like it's fine. But for most people, just don't take more than 4 IUs of growth hormone and don't take insulin, and this is not going to happen. Like I'm not planning to ever use either growth hormone or insulin, because personally I'm chasing aesthetics and feeling amazing. I'm not chasing to be huge. So the next pathway here is what an average person should be concerned with. Like even a person who is not working out, a person who is not taking any steroids or anything like that, the average person should be concerned with this, because huge amount of population is overweight, and being overweight in general, like it doesn't matter if it's fat or muscle, is going to put a huge strain on your heart and is usually going to lower your lifespan. So it really doesn't matter if you are like 140 kilos or 120 kilos of muscle or fat. It doesn't matter. You are heavy either way. You are putting strain on your heart and your other organs, and you will live less. So this is a huge one. And a lot of people who are like bodybuilding and bulking, they think like, ooh, it's all muscle, so it's good. But then they are like 110 kilos and they think it's fine. But they are probably going to live shorter than if they were just like 90 kilos. So in my opinion, a good way to think about the ideal weight could be similar to your height, in centimeters minus 100. So if I'm 180 centimeters, my weight should probably be around 80 kilos, maybe 85, absolute maximum 90, like not over 90 kilos for my height. So if someone is like 190 centimeters, they should probably not be over 100 kilos, like maybe 105. But you should generally look at it that way. Like sure, if you are 2 meters tall, obviously you will be heavier, that's fine. But you should still keep an eye out on it and not be like ridiculously heavy for your height. Like if someone is 170 centimeters, there is no reason for them to be over 75 or 80 kilos. Zero reason to be over that weight. Because sure, it's a flex if you are like my height and you are like, oh, I'm a 100 kilo gorilla, but you were probably not made to be that weight at that height. Like at my height, me right now, I'm around 80 kilos. So if I just got leaner and built more muscle, I could be the same weight, around 80 kilos, and be, let's say, 10% body fat. Maybe I would need to build another few kilos of muscle for that. And that would be the perfect weight for me. That weight would not be putting any additional strain on my heart. My resting heart rate would still be low. But if you are really huge, like here the Gemini was saying 260 pounds, that's probably like 120 kilos. At that weight, your resting heart rate is probably going to be more than 100. Like just laying in bed, your heart is going to be beating as hard as me walking. So you need to keep that in mind. Like you don't want your heart to be working harder when you sleep than when I like walk around. So you should keep this in mind. Like even if you are natural, like you should keep your weight in mind, that it's like a huge factor in how long you're gonna live regarding your heart. Here the next thing is also a big thing for people who are using steroids, which is like the blood thickness, like how thick your blood is. And basically the only thing you can do here is to not use ridiculous doses, because if you use ridiculous doses of steroids, your blood is going to be really thick regardless. There is not much you can do about that. People are saying the ways to prevent it is to do more cardio and to drink more water, which probably can help a lot, but still, if you use ridiculous doses, your blood is still going to be really thick. So for me personally, the best way to prevent this is to not use ridiculous doses. If you use doses like me, as I said, 250, 350 milligrams testosterone, microdose trenbolone here and there, your blood is not going to be too thick, which is what I already proved with my blood work. My blood is normal thickness, it's not too thick. So if you keep your blood thickness in check, like me, by not using ridiculous doses, staying hydrated, being fit, then you should not really have any issues with that. So what else does it say here? Yeah, like if you are really hydrated, well, you will have less issues than if you are dehydrated, obviously. But still, the main issue here with the blood viscosity is the people who use huge doses and their blood is as thick as syrup or honey. So you don't want to do that, because then your heart is struggling to push that thick blood through your arteries and veins compared to if the blood was normal thickness. And the last thing on the list is the most important thing in my opinion, because it's going to make the biggest difference here without any medication. So this is the thing that you can, it's like all on you to fix, and it's going to impact your blood pressure and your heart health and your longevity regardless if you are natural or not. A really big thing that's like impacting, I see in Asia a lot of people have high blood pressure due to a huge high sodium intake from all the salty sauces that they are using, like fish sauce, soy sauce and similar. And in Balkans, a lot of people have high blood pressure because they have so much salt from the meat that they eat, because the meat that they eat and the barbecue has a huge amount of salt. So the best way to do it is to not remove the salt, but to increase your potassium intake to balance it out. You should not stop eating meat because it's salty. You should not remove the sauce from your diet because the sauce has salt. Salt is completely normal to intake, but you need to intake more potassium to balance it out. So in my opinion, like I eat a ton of salty food still up to this day, but my blood pressure is normal because my potassium intake is high as well. So that's the only important thing here, to balance your potassium, sodium, but also like magnesium, calcium, whatever. Like because magnesium can lower your blood pressure as well. But in general, sodium and potassium are the two most important ones here, because magnesium you can just take as a supplement. Like I was showing it before, I have it here. Like you can just take some magnesium bisglycinate every day. I take like 600 milligrams a day, and that's definitely going to help with these things because it's going to relax your blood vessels further. But you want to play with your sodium and potassium balance so you have less fluid retention, because if you have more fluid retention from too much sodium, your blood pressure is going to be higher. You will be putting much more strain on your heart and your kidneys. So this is a huge thing, because sure, if you take steroids, then you will have more sodium retention. Like I think, if I remember correctly, I'm probably retaining 10 to 20% more sodium than the person who is not taking any testosterone, because taking testosterone and androgens in general, as I said in the beginning of this video, it's gonna like increase the angiotensin and aldosterone pathways, so that's gonna retain more sodium. But even if you are a natural person, you will still be retaining sodium if you are just intaking so much sodium. So yeah, you need to balance that out. You need to balance the sodium and the potassium, because then you will retain less water weight, and your blood pressure will be normal, and you won't be worrying about putting strain on your heart and kidneys from the high blood pressure. So these are the main pathways. Like there is probably some smaller pathways that can impact this as well, but these are like, let's say 90 to 95% of everything that would impact your heart if you are using steroids, or even if you are not, some of these things. So I think this is a really important video. So if you are planning to use steroids, like keep all of these things in mind. Like me personally right now, I'm not taking any medications to play with anything like this. I am not taking the Nebivolol, I'm not taking Telmisartan, but it's important to know, to keep them in mind, because if I ever needed them for any kind of reason, I know that they exist and that I could use them as tools. but mostly you can control a lot of the things yourself by just balancing your electrolytes, staying hydrated, not using big doses, and being fit, not being too heavy. Those are probably the biggest things here. Because if you use huge doses, you use growth hormone, you use insulin, you are heavy as fuck, you are fat. Like, if you do those things, you are fucked. So this is a really important video, and you can send this to anyone who thinks that your heart is going to explode from using steroids, because steroids will definitely, they can fuck you up if you don't know what you are doing. But if you just know these basic things that I explained in this video, that's less than 20 minutes. And if you put it on 2 times speed, it's going to be less than 10 minutes. Like, there is no reason to be worried if you understand the pathways and how it works. So that's pretty much it for this video. See you in the next one.